Welcome to the very first episode of Reimagined with Robin. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Albert Einstein once said, imagination is more important than knowledge. So Reimagined with Robin is a 15-minute live conversation with someone who is working to reinvent how we interact with the world we live in, from physical spaces to social experiences to even how we run a business. Turning to our audience right now, please tell us in the chat below, where are you tuning in from? Also, let us know who you'd like to hear from future episodes, and we'll really try to work that into our lineup. Thrilled to be here today with Bunim Laskin, co-founder and CEO of Swimply. So Bunim, what is it that you are reimagining?
Absolutely, Robin. Thanks for having me. So Swimply is reimagining local communities and the way we interact with each other, ultimately providing on-demand access to leisure activities to what used to be only available to the 1%. We're essentially democratizing for the world. So that's currently what we're building. And we do that by allowing people to share underutilized spaces, things like swimming pools, tennis courts, stuff that go unused 99% of the time, but have all the potential to provide all the health and happiness to entire communities, but just sit there idle. And so Swimply kind of unlocks those to the entire community by letting people rent them by the hour, essentially an Airbnb for people's backyard spaces.
Oh, wow. So I can just reimagine how I will go for a swim. Is that what people generally do?
Yeah, ultimately. So the vision for Swimply is that every passion needs a space, and entire ecosystems are based around these spaces, whether it's tennis, music, art, and they all just need access to these things that they get to really live out their passions. But right now, only a small percentage of people actually have access to these really unique spaces. We started with swimming pools as an example, which is something that is owned by only 4% of America have access to, yet it's the fourth most popular activity in America, and the number one most popular activity for families with children under the age of 17. And so what Swimply does is ultimately allow a family like mine, which I'm the oldest of 12, who never had the means to own a swimming pool, have one on demand. And essentially 70% of our bookings are families that just escape their conveyor belt of life for an hour a day, 2 hours a day, and just use their neighbor's pool or somebody in the community. And the owner, on the other hand, we're reimagining the way they even see this ownership of luxury spaces. Something that they spend a tremendous amount of money on, but barely use, is now not just kind of paying for itself, but in many places in the country, earning them a considerable profit. So we're essentially completely reimagining space by democratizing it.
Wow. I mean, so I have perfect view of my neighbor who is building a swimming pool right now. So I think I need to kind of like send them a postcard from Swimply, like nudge them to be on the platform. So I don't go over and be like, can I use your pool?
Yep, exactly.
So where is
how most of our growth happens is literally neighbors wanting access to people's pools, but they don't want to be they're kind of sick of kissing up. And so ultimately you just get them to listen on Swimply and make it more of a win-win.
Where is it happening right now? Is it in like certain states? Is it, is it nationwide? Where is Swimply?
Yeah, so Swimply is active in 130 cities, including 2 cities in Canada and 1 city in Australia, trying to counteract our, Australia summers during the winter. But where most of our activity right now, most popular cities are Los Angeles, Austin, Texas, Portland, and the New York area.
And how to use technology right now to enable Swimply to happen? Like, how do people book?
Yeah, absolutely. So tech is what allows what we're doing to scale. Initially, all the first bookings were done over the phone. I put flyers around town and people would call me and I'd charge you over Square and deliver checks bi-weekly. And that, as you can imagine, didn't scale too well. What tech has allowed us to do is scale not just the transactions throughout the country quite quickly over the last 2 years. It also allowed us to scale trust. It allowed us to scale safety through the platform, and really allowed to streamline the transaction by allowing owners to set their own rules and their regulations and what kind of bookings they're comfortable with. So when guests come, they can find the pools that fit them perfectly.
Why do you think this is happening right now? Like, is it COVID? Like, what are the tailwinds that are enabling Swimply to manifest itself in this like point in time?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that play into why Swimply is as successful as it is right now. One of them being purely geographical. I mean, look, in the last last 2 years, suburban's become the new urban. More than 90% of suburban communities have seen growth as opposed to only 18% of urban communities. And so people are finding themselves, further from like local activities and surrounded by, potentially just homes. And ultimately we're creating a new category within those communities to allow people to move to these communities, but to continue to spend time with friends and family and, the way that maybe urban communities provided, but suburban didn't. So that's one really powerful reason that we're just seeing this community take over a lot of as quickly as it is. The other element is, I think, COVID. I think a lot happened during COVID that made people realize that they're not okay with looking forward to 3 times a year that they're going to go on vacation. And people really wanted to invest on the days of their life, whether it was working from home or learning a new hobby. People found themselves really investing in their passions. And I think that has had people, what Swimply does is it allows you to look forward to this afternoon. It allows you to look forward to a Friday. It's what we call escaping locally, all right? Not needing to go thousands of miles away to, find yourself in a place of your own. And so I think those two things combined is really what's making Swimply resonate right now.
Yeah, I think that like as a mom of 2 also, like with my kids, I don't really think that finding my paradise would be at YMCA or like at our local gym.
Yeah,
So
I mean, people always ask us if like what our competition is. And for example, public pools, right? Like there's Swimply isn't really, even though we launched with pools, it's not really about getting wet so much, right? The city with the highest amount of public pools is Scottsdale, Arizona. The city with the highest amount of private pools is also Scottsdale, Arizona, right? People don't build pools because there aren't access to ways to getting wet in the area. Pools are these local escapes. These are private, it's on demand, it's customizable. People are barbecuing, people are celebrating, people are creating memories. And that's generally not as efficient in these public spaces, which is why people invest in having their own when they can.
yeah, I even remember like going to one of the pools on the platform and like the pool host was saying, actually, I never imagined that there will be multiple different families booking my pool like one day, right? And Airbnb, we have seen only people stay for like a couple of days at a time and it's just one family or one guest. But with Swimply, you're reimagining how like even the shared space is with multiple families per even day, not even just like per month or something like that.
Yeah, I think our top like 5% of hosts on average will see like 3 to 7 families like a day, especially on the weekends. And they're earning 6 figures from their backyard. Mind you, when Swimply launched, it was meant to just cover your expenses. It was meant to make 2 or 3 grand a year. And we have several hosts earning over 6 figures. And they've turned it into a real like local business, essentially.
Wasn't the first pool on the platform your co-founder Usher's pool?
So Usher wasn't the first pool. The first pool was actually my neighbor. So she was the one that I initially convinced to let my family use my pool, even though we were 12 kids. So she was the person that sparked the idea. And then we went on Google Earth and we found a bunch of pools and I knocked on 80 doors and 4 of them agreed. And that's when it got a bit of like buzz. And those of those 76 initially rejected, 20 came back. That's when I decided to actually launch Swimply, and Usher was the first pool on Swimply when we so Usher, that technically is true. Usher was the first pool on Swimply, just not maybe the first pool that was being shared with others.
It's pretty funny. How like, in your vision, if life was the way that you want it to be, how will our world be changed by Swimply in the next 5 to 10 years? Whether it's like hosts or guests or community.
Yeah, so I think like in 3 to 5 years, the world that we would love to build is one where space, this extra space, is either ridiculously intelligent or unnecessary. Either you people can build their own tennis courts knowing it's gonna pay for itself by sharing it with like-minded tennis players in the community. Invest in an art studio in your own house not because you're a millionaire and you can afford to like just throw money at stuff, but because it's gonna bring communities together, pay for itself, and give you the on-demand access. And on the other end, you can live on a 2x2 in New York City and have the pool that you get together with your family, have the tennis court that you practice your swing with, you have your art studio where you escape, you have your music studio. You need access to on demand. You would no longer need to invest in building one as much as you would just contribute to the community by having access to it. So that's ultimately where we see the world being, where we just make everyone's a little bit bigger.
do you see Swimply as replacing certain competition, or do you think that Swimply is just reimagining how we live our life from now on?
Yeah, so I think we're just creating something really brand new. So unlike I think other sharing economies before us that found like really intelligent alternatives, Swimply is doing something right now that people haven't tried to do or even knew they can. So on that sense, it's kind of amazing because we're just creating something out of thin air and without actually taking away any jobs or really affecting any negative impact in communities. We really are one of those marketplaces that are just kind of just really doing good both sides of the community without any real negative impact. So that's something pretty incredible. I do think that we're probably going to start seeing, because of the behaviors that Swimply is creating, you're probably going to see probably a lot of public locations, right, start to lose their appeal. Things like YMCA, public pools, and stuff like that. I probably believe you're going to start seeing those becoming less and less of an attractive option as this consumer behavior gets adopted.
Really excited to like find a way for, as a Swimply user, to like find my tribe on Swimply, find like other families also who like we can co-book together, share like play dates or something, as opposed to like awkwardly at some outdoor pool be like, hey, can we play together? I think that would be really neat. I think you're also like talking about.
Yeah, it's actually very fun. I think you're me, Robin. Yeah, we're actually seeing those form throughout the country. Like, it's funny enough, we see Facebook groups like Moms of Swimply, and like they'll all just try to find pools together and like book them and be able to actually split the pay and go together, because often these pools would allow 10 guests, but you're only coming with 4. And so we actually see, because Swimply is actually unique in the sense where it's a hyper local community, you have people in LA sharing their pools with people in LA. You do see a lot of those really tight knit groups getting together and sharing their experiences. Something we want to actually lean into and help people build. We actually just hired a head of community who's literally in charge of just building these tight knit communities throughout the country, pet lovers, swimming enthusiasts, and people that can actually just gather around spaces.
Wow. We actually have a question from the audience. They're asking, do you think Swimply will make pools more attractive to home buyers? So like a lot of potential buyers, himself included, see pools as a negative when considering a home purchase. What are your thoughts on this?
That's exactly what we see. So like specifically, like right now, having a pool doesn't even necessarily increase the value of a home, and often does decrease it, because if you want to remove it, which a lot of people do because of the ongoing expenses, right, it's going to be a decent cost. But with Swimply, like we even have use cases on the platform where people are buying homes because they have a pool. So and people are renting homes because it has a pool, and then they sub-release the pool just to pay for itself. So we definitely see pools becoming a much more valuable and powerful asset, as opposed to something that is known as the nuisance that it may be today when buying a home.
I feel like when I interviewed a lot of the Swimply hosts, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I should just invest in building pools and make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Last question. How are you reimagining yourself as a leader this year?
Oof. I mean, lots happened. The company was only 2 people like 13 months ago. And now we're 45. And I think we have 25 open positions right now. Which obviously, as you know, Robin, we're trying to find the best talent on earth to help fill. But I think for me, it's probably learning to delegate a little bit more, probably learning to give people like independence, and probably, I think we're getting a lot more data driven and proactive. Swimply has been really, because the product market fit happened so fast, we've been on the defense for the last 2 years. So for us, it's really about moving forward, getting data driven, getting the right team, and letting people, have this space to figure shit out.
Thank you so much for like reinventing the world we live in. Spring and summer really can't come soon enough here in New York City. My colleagues and I at GGV.
The pleasure is absolutely mine, Robin.
Yeah. Thanks. We're so excited to be on this journey with you. Thank you for sharing today. Everyone, stay tuned for future episodes.
Thanks, Robin.